Now, for the Biden administration's take on the state of COVID relief talks, we are joined by Jared Bernstein. He's a member of the White House Council of Economic Advisors. Jared Bernstein, good to see you. Thank you for being with us. I want to ask you first about a report that came out yesterday by the Congressional Budget Office forecasting that the U.S. economy is going to recover rapidly by the middle of this year, which raises the question, does the government need to spend as much money as the administration is proposing to boost the economy?
Yeah, that's a really fair and important question. What that CBO report showed is that in the second half of this year, GDP would grow at about 4%. That's a good GDP growth rate. However, for far too many families, both throughout this crisis and even before this crisis, GDP growth has been a spectator sport. They have fallen behind even as the economy has expanded. This is often discussed under the rubric of economic inequality or racial injustice, and it's one of the huge motivating factors for President Biden and Vice President Harris when they campaign. Now, these inequities have been laid bare by this crisis, by this pandemic. It has been disproportionately felt by workers on the bottom leg of that K. You know, we talk about a K-shaped recovery with folks at the top who never missed a paycheck doing fine, and tens of millions of folks at the bottom who have been beset by both the health and the economic crisis. The American Rescue Plan targets that bottom leg of the K, along with virus control and vaccine distribution, to engender an inclusive recovery, not just a GDP number that doesn't reach many who need it.
Well, let me have several points to ask you about, and I'm going to move quickly. But it is reported today, Jared Bernstein, that the president told this group of Democratic senators, Republican senators he met with last night, that he gave them the clear indication he's willing to look at lowering the price tag overall. Is that true? And number one, and number two, how far?
So when I hear Joe Biden talk about this plan, I don't think he's referring to a top-line price tag. What he's talking about is as quickly and as efficiently as possible meeting the urgency of this crisis. He's talked about the cost of inaction in terms of jobs, in terms of kids out of school, in terms of parents who can't go back into the job market, in terms of numbers you yourself have mentioned, the 1 million people who claimed unemployment just last week, a bigger number than throughout the heart of the Great Recession. Now, in terms of price tag, the president is not going to settle for any package that fails to meet the urgency of the moment, to get shots into arm, to get school reopened, to get people back to work, to preserve businesses, to distribute the vaccine. And the American Rescue Plan is scaled to meet that challenge. What the president has said to Republicans is, come in all day and we'll talk about better, more efficient ways to meet that challenge, but we're not going to dial back the goals of this plan.
I hear you. So I hear you saying it's important, but you're not wedded to that 1.9. But what I want to ask you is something that Senator Barrasso raised, which is Congress passed aid last month in the hundreds of billions of dollars. And he's saying that money hasn't gotten out of the pipeline into people's pocketbooks yet. Why rush? Why not wait for that money to go out and see what's needed?
Because the American people cannot afford another episode of wait and see. I agreed with a lot of what Mr. Barrasso said. A lot of it resonated with me. I thought he had a sense of urgency until he started talking about wait and see. Yes, we have passed the bill in December, and that is helping people. But that bill ends. Many of the components of that bill end in March. And what we did last year is Congress did this wait and see exercise. This was before the December bill. They did this wait and see exercise. And what happened? Families lost work. Jobs began to decline. Consumer spending, which is 70% of this economy, actually contracted in November and December before that plan went into effect. We have to get ahead of this. The virus will only be beat. We'll only put it behind us. We'll only distribute and produce the vaccines if we help states and localities do what needs to be done. And we can't afford to wait another few months to see how this is going to work out. That way we fall behind the curve. Passing the American Rescue Plan as soon as possible gets us ahead of the curve, finally, so that we can finally launch a robust, inclusive, and racially equitable recovery.
So much more to ask you, Jared Bernstein. Quick question, yes or no? Is it possible that families earning $250,000 a year could end up benefiting from this aid? Yes or no?
I think that the discussions that are the ongoing discussions right now are very much about dealing with that targeting issue.
All right, a subject to continue to ask you about. Jared Bernstein, thank you very much.
Thank you.